Hello, everybody watching on the replay. This is the informal formal Zoom workshop replay. Okay, I posted this link over on my business page, Lisa Cape and Quilts, for you to join in. This is actually the first kind of free workshop like this that I've hosted. So like I said, it's very informal, but we do have a topic today, and I'm going to be walking you through the workflow of using my cutting machine. Now, I personally have a Brother Scan and Cut. Mine is an older model, the CM350. But what I want to show today is the workflow. So it does not matter if you have the brand new Scan and Cut, if you have a Scan and Cut, the very first original one from who knows how long ago, if you have a machine like mine, or if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, it does not matter. What I want to show you today is how I take the SVG of any pattern, or even one that you make yourself, right? And take that and actually cut it out of fabric for applique for your projects. I have a workflow that seems to work pretty well for me. And sometimes just the process of taking that cut file and getting it on the mat and cut out can be intimidating for a lot of people. And a lot of people have these cutting machines and they don't use them. Some have had it for a while and it's still in the box. And some have taken it out of the box and it's just been sitting there and they've been too intimidated to use it. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to say, because I've had several people ask me, what is the advantage of a Scan and Cut versus another one? Because I don't have any, hold on one second. Let's just say you don't have any cutting machine at all, and you're wondering what machine should I get? I can only speak for my Brother Scan and Cut. It's all I've ever had, except for an industrial machine, which is a totally different ballgame. The Scan and Cut is the only personal cutting machine I've ever had. And the reason why I purchased a Scan and Cut is because it has a built-in scanner. Okay, and I do have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel showing different features like scanning your mat and your fabric pieces and moving your fabric pieces over top of the fabric. There's a lot of really cool features you can use because the machine has a built-in scanner, where Cricut and Silhouette, to my knowledge, does not have a built-in scanner in the machine. And during my workflow process today in this workshop, you'll see one of the reasons why having that scanner is really helpful. I can't tell you that for you, the Scan and Cut will be the best option over a Cricut. Those are decisions that you have to make. And my best advice, like always, is if you're considering getting a machine, watch lots of reviews. There's tons of reviews on YouTube about all kinds of machines, and that might help you make up your mind for the best machine for you and the way that you want to use it. Okay, so during this process, if you have a question and you're here during the meeting, you can unmute yourself. And I'm going to be switching from you seeing me to you seeing my cutting mat, and then one more camera at the Scan and Cut. So I'm going to be doing lots of back and forth, but again, it is a very informal class. And I'll also be sharing my screen. So that's where we're going to start today. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is the software that operates. Nope, that's the wrong thing. I told you it was going to be informal. Hold on one second. There we go. Sorry, I was adding more people in. Share. Okay. All right. So what you should see on the screen now is Canvas Workspace. If you have a Cricut, you'll pull up Design Space. If you have a Silhouette, I'm not sure what software you use for a silhouette, but each one of the machines has a software that helps you plan out your cutting files, and some of them you can even design your own within the software, right? So I'm working with Canvas Workspace for my brother Scan and Cut. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my SVG, okay? And I'm going to be working with block 10 of all the things. So let me find where I have that saved. All the things SVG file, there we go. All right, so the way that I save my SVG files is I try to fit all of the pieces into one file. So on the screen, you should see all of the pieces that came with that block. Many different pattern designers do it differently. I try to fit it all in one file. Sometimes I might have to split it up into two files, right? So on the screen, you see all the different elements that make up that block. Well, I don't want to cut them all out at one time, right? I want to use different fabrics for different pieces. And the first thing we're going to start with today is I want to cut out the large butterfly. See that? That is the base foundation of my butterfly for this block. So I'm going to just select everything else, and I'm going to delete that for now. To start off with, we're going to cut the base foundation of the butterfly. Now, depending on which machine you have and whether it's wireless, you might have to save this butterfly to a USB stick. You might have your cutting machine hooked straight up to your computer. Mine is wireless, and so I can send it to my Scan and Cut machine wirelessly. So you have a couple of different options, right? I'm going to send mine through the internet, and wirelessly, it's over at my machine right now. So we have the butterfly. This is what we're cutting first, right? Stop share. There we go. There we go. So what do we do from here, right? We have the SVG cut file, and I have a bunch of fabric, and I have some heat and bond light, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is, well, I got ahead of myself, share my screen again because I want to show you something. All right, so this butterfly, when I click on it, I don't know if you can see down at the bottom of the screen, it says it's 8.06 inches high, and it says it's 8.17 inches wide, right? And you can even look at the mat, and if you pull it up to this top right-hand corner, you can kind of look at the lines on the mat and see that if I cut a piece of heat and bond that's 9.5 inches wide and 9.5 inches tall, that should be a good amount of heat and bond that I need for my fabric, right? So you get a rough estimate of how big your piece is going to be. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to cut out a piece of heat and bond that's 9.5 by 9.5. 922 camera. All right, so here is my table. I have my sheet of, this is heat and bond light. And I'm just going to use my mat because I'm very informal like that. I'm just going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. And I'm just drawing lines because this does not matter. This is not going to be a permanent part of my block, right? And then you can either use scissors just to make it fast. I use a rotary cutter, and I'm cutting out this piece of heat and bond light, right? So this, I'm going to now fuse onto the back side of my fabric. So let me pull over my fabric and get my iron heating up. So here's the fabric I want to use for the base of my butterfly. And it's just a black fabric with a print on it. It's one of the fat quarters that I got for all the things. And I'm just going to give that a quick press to get some of these harder creases out. And now I'm just going to lay this heat and bond on here so that I'm wasting as little fabric as possible, right? And I'm going to fuse the heat and bond to the back side of the fabric. And of course, we don't want to fuse it too long, but we do want it to adhere to the back. So now, I just take my rotary cutter and I'm going to trim right around this fabric, leaving very little outside of the heat and bond, right? So there we go. That is the fabric we're going to cut the butterfly from. So now I'm going to bring in my scan and cut mat. Y'all, this is a very well-loved mat. This is the second mat I've ever bought. And it's a little tacky, but it's not like a brand new mat. Okay, you can hear it. A little tacky. I'm going to go ahead and just place my fabric right on the mat. Now, the beauty of a scan and cut is that I can put this fabric anywhere on my mat. And I can actually scan my mat in and then move my applique over top of the fabric. If you're using a Cricut or a silhouette, you might want to position your applique in a way that you put your fabric where you know is in the right place, right? Now, one of the things that I like to do, because I use my mats even when they're barely sticky, is I use clear packing tape. And clear packing tape is a lot cheaper than scan and cut mats. So even when this mat has no sticky at all, I'm still using it. And I just taped all of my pieces in place. So I add a little tape at the top and the bottom and on the sides. I like the clear packing tape because I don't have to worry about taping over the registration marks of my mat. Certain mats, if you cover any of these little shapes, it will not scan your mat, right? So clear tape, it doesn't matter. I can tape all I want to, and I'm not covering anything important up. So there's our fabric on our mat. We're ready to head over to the cutting machine. So let me switch over to that camera. All right. I don't know if y'all can see my cats down the hallway. They're peeking in. All right. I did not turn on my machine, so we have to do that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and load my mat into the machine. There we are. And I think it loaded sideways. Hold on a second. I'm doing it at an angle, so pardon me. There we go. Okay, the mat is now loaded. So for me, my pattern is somewhere in the internet. You might have to load a USB stick, or you might be hardwired to your computer, right? I'm going to choose pattern and bring in my butterfly piece wirelessly. And that just takes a second. And I know it's going to be hard to see because of the lights, but my butterfly is right there on the screen. So I want to make sure my butterfly is positioned correctly on my fabric. And that's one of the reasons why I love the built-in scanner. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my scanner button. And it's going to scan whatever is on this mat. Now you'll see, hopefully a little bit anyway, the black fabric on my mat. And indeed, my butterfly is just off of the edge of my fabric. So I'm going to click on my butterfly, and I'm going to reposition that right in the middle. And that is perfect aligning, and I'm ready to cut this out. Now I'm going to give you the settings that I'm using today. However, keep in mind that my blade is very well used and my fabric thickness might be different than whatever you're cutting out. So I always recommend doing a test cut before continuing on with the cutting process, okay? My blade thickness is set at 6.5 on my little dial on the blade. And the pressure of my blade I have set at 4. We're going to click OK, and we are ready to cut. That is going to take 1 minute or less to cut out my butterfly. So yeah, that wasn't actually a minute. It was less than a minute. So it says it's finished cutting. I'm going to say OK and eject the mat. So my butterfly is on there. I'm going to bring it over to my cutting mat. So here's my mat. And I just take a sharp pointy thing. Y'all, this came from the Dollar Tree. It's a great little pointy thing for weeding out vinyl and doing all kinds of crafts. And it has a little blunt end for burnishing folds and things like that. It's from the Dollar Tree, but it works great for just lifting up underneath this tape. And I just rip that tape off. I go through, you know, good sized pieces of tape pretty quickly, but you can also buy the clear tape from the Dollar Tree. And again, the clear tape is much more cost effective than buying new mats that are sticky. All right, so then I just take my pointy thing and I lift up and I grab my extra fabric and I just peel that away. So there's our butterfly. And I have great size chunks that I can use for other projects, right? So I save all of this because that's good size pieces. We do lots of applique that's way smaller than this. So I saved that. Unfortunately, we needed a good size square to fit this base of the butterfly in there, right? And then I just take my sharp pointy thing. I reach up underneath of that paper for the applique. It might rip the paper, right? I still have some paper on there, but here is the base of my butterfly with the heat and bond on the back. So that's ready to fuse onto my block. And then I just use my pokey tool and get off this extra paper. Some parts of my mat are stickier than others, so paper might stick here and there. So that's the base of my butterfly, right? Let's go back to the Canvas workspace. And I'm going to just delete off that butterfly because that's done, right? We're done with that part. And I'm going to bring in that file again. So I choose to open that file, block 10 of all the things. It's going to, again, bring in all of the pieces. Well, we have cut out the base of the butterfly, so I can delete that. And now we decide, what are we cutting out next, right? So let's go ahead and cut out the word follow. So I'm just going to delete all the other parts off the mat, and we'll cut those out later. And here is the word follow. I like to just select all of the pieces. See how there's little dotted blue boxes around each one of them? You can move them individually when you see that they have little blue boxes around them. But to make it easy to move them over in the scan and cut, right here in the software, I like to have them all selected. And then I like to go up to edit and group. So that means if I click on the F, all of the letters are grouped together, and it allows me to move everything much easier over in the cutting machine. So with the word follow selected, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that that is about 3.37 inches tall and 5.64 inches long. You can also move this up to the corner of your mat and just get a rough estimate, right? If we cut a piece of heat and bond that's 7 inches long and maybe 2.5 inches wide, that would be perfect for this piece. So let's do that. And we'll cut out this word together. So I have my heat and bond, and I just do a rough estimate. I mark all over this heat and bond, y'all. It's not going to make any difference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 2.5, I'll just do 2 3/4 to be on the safe side. This is the piece of heat and bond that we're going to cut out. I'll just do it with a pair of scissors this time. So we're going to fuse that onto the back side of the fabric we're going to use. And I think for my words, I wanted to use this black fabric that's got really pretty colors and a print on the pretty side. Just kind of finger press it at first. I'm going to let my iron warm back up because she goes to sleep. And we're going to press all the hard creases out, just like we would doing any normal applique. And then I'm just going to position this heat and bond so that we're wasting as little fabric as possible. And so for each part of the applique for this block, this is the process I would do, right? I would pull up the whole file, delete the parts I'm not cutting out, keep the parts that I am, figure out how big that's going to be, and then cut my heat and bond, fuse it on my fabric, and then cut out my piece of fabric. That process has really helped speed up the whole process of cutting out applique for any of my patterns, and this is what I do. So then I bring in my mat. If you're using a silhouette or a Cricut, you might want to put it in a special place. Because I have the cutting machine, I'm just going to put it right in the center of my mat and add some tape. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead with everyone. There we go. Let's get back on track, y'all. I'm going to have to remove that part somehow from the replay. I don't know how I'll do that, but I'll figure it out later. Okay, I'm going to go back to the home screen. And so we're back at the home menu for my scan and cut. I'm going to load the mat in, and it's got the fabric piece for the word follow. There we go. So I'm going to hit pattern, and we're going to grab that image from the internet, wherever it is, wirelessly. I'm going to bring it in. And I know you probably can't see because of the angle, but the word follow just popped up on the screen. I'm going to scan my mat. So now on the screen, you'll see my little fabric scrap right in the middle of the mat. And because we grouped the word follow before we sent it over here, I'm able just to click on the whole thing and move it all at one time instead of moving each individual letter and fitting it on there. I'm just going to move it right into the middle of that piece of fabric, and we're ready to have it cut.
Lisa, if you are doing this and then you want to cut out many different things at once, you can set it up on the screen so that you can set up the different pieces that you're going to need all on one piece of fabric.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yep. And let me have it cut out this word, and then I'll show you how to do that.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
And on the screen, it's saying it's going to take a minute to cut out the word follow. And one of the awesome things about the cutting machine is I have essential trimmers. And so doing fussy cutting and cutting out words and small details is really hard for me sometimes. This will cut out my applique pieces perfectly and in less than a minute. So just like that, it has cut out the word follow. We're going to say okay and eject the mat. I'm going to share my cutting mat with you. So here we are back again, and I just have my pokey tool. I'm going to lift off that tape. And then just reach up underneath of that fabric and paper and lift that up. And there's my words. And then we have the little circles inside that we can remove. So there's my word perfectly cut out of the fabric, right?
That is amazing.
Right? I know. And it's cut out perfectly, and I didn't have to fussy cut that. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, I want a cutting machine, but I feel like it wastes so much fabric. But if you're a scrappy person like I am, or if you do lots of applique like I do, I tend to keep these pieces because look, we've got good amounts of pieces, and sometimes, you know, this might be usable. So I'll cut out the biggest pieces of all of this and save it. It's already got the heat and bond on it. It's ready to go on the mat and to cut something out of it. So I have a box that I just save that stuff in. So let me share my screen and we'll go over, because I'm sorry, I didn't see who was asking the question about cutting multiple things out at one time. But so we've cut out the word follow. We can just delete that. Again, I'm just going to open up the file for the butterfly block, and it brings in all of our pieces. Well, we've cut out the base of the butterfly, and we've cut out the word follow, so we can get rid of that. So these are the pieces I have left to cut for this block, right? Well, let's say that I want to cut out the word your with a specific fabric. I'm going to group those together so I can move them all at the same time. And you can put that up here. And let's say I want to cut out heart from a completely different fabric. I'm just going to select all of those and group those together so I can move them all at the same time. So what I would do is cut out two pieces of heat and bond light, adhere them on two separate fabrics, and cut them both out at the same time. And we'll go through this process one more time. And I think that everybody at that point would get kind of how the workflow goes. I'm only bringing up what I'm cutting out at that time, right? So I'm just going to keep them separated just like this.
While you're doing that, Lisa, I have to show my total ignorance here.
Oh, no dumb questions here, so please ask.
When you're going and you're drawing out what you want to make, what do you do then? Do you scan that into your computer to be able to get it there, or do you do this on the screen of the computer?
You mean when I'm writing the patterns?
Right.
Well, I do it a couple of different ways. So let me come back to me so you see me talking. Hold on one second. I actually do it a couple of different ways. So each week when we're doing all the things and you get that 5-inch block PDF, I hand drew all of those, and I hand drew it, and then I scanned it in the computer and got a digital PDF copy of it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, for the 12-inch version, I brought in the PDF into Inkscape and I digitized, I turned the PDF into an SVG cutting file. So there's many steps in that, but that's basically how I got a cutting file from the free block that I give away for all the things.
Okay.
Now there's many videos on YouTube on how to turn a PDF into a cutting file using Inkscape. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, there are tons of videos showing you how to do that. All right, I'm going to bring you through cutting out these two things. And I think that'll wrap up a good example of the workflow. So here's my mat. I'm going to scoot all this over. I want 2 more pieces of heat and bond. I'm just going to use this as a little template, right? Because this was a great size. And this is actually just like what I would be doing to cut out the pieces for this block, just moving just like this, cutting out pieces of heat and bond. So there's my 2 pieces of heat and bond for my fabric. And then I would choose which fabric I'm going to use for these 2 words, right? And let's see, I like this one and I like this one. So let's get those ready. All right, I'm just going to press the creases out. And I'm going to position that just like that for that piece. And then just roughly cut that. I usually leave just a smidgen of fabric beyond that heat and bond. And usually my fat quarters end up looking just like this, right? Little slivers here and there. And we're going to take this blue piece, get those hard creases out. And then just roughly cut out this piece. All right, so there's my 2 fabric pieces for the words you and or your and heart. So I'm just going to put my fabric in a couple of different places on my mat. Again, because I have a scanner, it doesn't matter where I'm putting my fabrics. And I tape them down. And now I'm ready to take this over to my cutting machine. So
Lisa, you're only putting that sticky tape down because your particular mat hasn't got the original stickiness.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, this mat is slightly tacky in some places. In some places, it is not sticky whatsoever. And so, yeah, the tape is only there to prolong the use of my mat because
Okay, thank you.
the fabric is possible for it to shift because the stickiness is not there. All right, let me send this over to my cutting machine.
One other question, Lisa. If I don't have any of this, if you're looking into what it is going to cost to kind of get the general things you need, how much are you talking? Are you talking a couple hundred? Are you talking like $1,000?
All right, let me switch the cameras over real quick so that you can see me when I tell you.
Okay.
So it
So that
depends
you
on
know
your
I'm a
budget.
real person. I even put my picture up. So you know
Thank
I'm a real
you.
person.
Yes, thank you. I'm still thrown off by the butt pictures and the bad stuff that was, that's throwing me off a little bit. So here's the thing. You're going to want to look at your budget, okay? And like I talked about during the live today, if you can buy the fanciest, latest, greatest, then that's awesome. I recommend doing that. That means you're going to find parts and replacement mats and blades relatively easy.
Yeah.
Until they come out with the newest one, and they're going to start discontinuing that stuff, right? If your budget doesn't allow for that, though, I highly recommend buying a used machine. Okay. And there's places you can do that, like Facebook Marketplace. Of course, you want to use your safety things, right? Don't meet people in strange places. Don't go to someone's house by yourself, all those things. But the marketplace can be a really great place to buy used machines that work perfectly. People just want the newest one, so they will sell their used one and use that money to upgrade to the newest. Just because it's used or secondhand does not mean that it's not a perfect working machine. On that note, I would test it out and make sure that it works before you buy it. But buying used is a great way to accommodate a machine for a lesser price. When we got my CM350, Harlan bought it. Him and his parents went in together and bought it for my Christmas present. And I think at the time, it was in the $300 range. Okay. And it came with the blade holder, a couple different blades. It came with a mat, one mat. It came with the little pin holder and 3 little pins. And I think that's all it came with. Now they have package deals where you can get vinyl and several blades and 2 mats or a fabric mat. They have different kinds of mats. I use one mat for everything, but I accommodate that by using tape, right? There's even a scanning mat that's not sticky at all and has a clear sheet you put over a PDF to scan it. Because with my scan and cut or any scan and cut, let's just say that this is all the things block that we did with the iron today. The page for it. I don't have it close by or else I'd use that. You could put that on your mat, scan it, and it would cut your little pieces out for you from the free PDF that I gave away today. That's the beauty of a scan and cut. Price-wise, depending on new and used, ranges. I would expect, and I haven't priced them, I would expect a newer model that has, well, I won't say Disney because I probably myself would not buy that machine. The same machine without the Disney stuff, $300-400 range.
Okay.
Maybe more. I'm not sure. Lisa?
Yeah, mine, I got mine from a dealer. And it came with 2 mats, 2 of the blades, the drawing pencils, and all the little things. And it has the fabric mat and all, and it was like $5.99.
Right. Right.
Just so I know what I'm looking at, it's probably more than I can, swing.
Well, see, and that's one reason why you might want to look too at different machines, right? Because the Cricut has a really good model out. I have not used it myself, but it might be less. And it might be, you might get a new machine that's more in your price range.
Yeah.
Because that does not have a built-in scanner. I don't know how that affects the price. I have not priced Cricuts or Silhouettes. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But
see, I have a Go Cutter, but that doesn't give me that doesn't give me the ability to do something that I designed.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's what I've been looking for. I have started drawing out my new design, but I'm wondering how in the world I'm going to cut these pieces out because they're so small and they're so delicate.
Right.
This
So-
might be the answer.
Well, and okay, so when we talk about advantages of a scan and cut versus the other brand machines, right? So let's say you're not good with Inkscape and messing with softwares to create your own designs. The scan and cut allows you the ability to draw on paper, put the paper on the mat, scan the mat, take the paper off, put fabric on the mat, and cut out of fabric what you had on your drawing.
Oh, okay.
That's the abilities you have with the built-in scanner.
Do you know of any place that that I could draw out what I want and give it to somebody to do this for me? Are there places that can do the cutting and the?
I'm not really sure, so I don't want to say
Okay.
yes or no.
Oh, all right. I didn't know if you knew something like that.
I don't really know. Sin, you have your hand up. Maybe Sin has an answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say that people that are trying to decide between scan and cut or the Cricut silhouette families, I chose the scan and cut and I've never been sorry. And one of the bonuses of it is it works in conjunction with your embroidery machine. So
Right.
if you like to do applique, you can send all your, depending how you set it up in your house, I have everything on my home network. I can send my file from my embroidery machine directly to my scan and cut it out, modify it, send the file back to my embroidery machine and stitch it up. It's
Yes.
such a, I have a bilateral hand disability, and so I understand where you're coming from, Lisa. And
Right.
that is so helpful. And without these extra tools, I would not be able to do what I do.
Right. Right.
I'm very happy, but I bought the 650W, I think it's called. At the time, it was the top of the line. Of course, then they came out with the X, and then the SD starts coming out.
Right.
But I won't trade this for anything, and it'll take up to a 24-inch cut.
Yeah. Yeah. So my CM350, the mat size is 12 by 12. And it does not accommodate a mat that is 12 by 24. So that's something else to consider too, is
Yeah.
the machines that came out after my CM350 do accommodate a longer mat. So there's all these things to think about. If you're looking for digitizers, there's all kinds of Facebook groups that you can join, like SVG groups, digital art groups on Facebook, things like that. And you might want to invest joining in some groups and becoming interactive in those groups and reading through the posts, because if someone offers that as a service, taking your drawing and turning it into an SVG file, then that might be a great way to make some connections like that. So maybe consider searching some Facebook groups that specialize in SVG files. That's what I would do. All right, we're going to take this over and we're going to cut these two words out and finish up the flow part of how I work with the SVGs.
Thank you very much for your help.
You're welcome.
And I really do appreciate your doing something like this for us who really have no idea what we're doing.
Well, it's
And
my
we have
pleasure
a chance
to do
to
it.
see how it's done.
Yeah, right. It's my pleasure. Something like this just takes the fear and intimidation out, but you have to
Yeah.
put these things into practice once you get the machines, right?
Right.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the home screen and we're going to bring in these two words. So they are on my screen. I'm going to load this mat in. And I'm going to scan my mat. All right, so you can just barely see the two fabric pieces on my mat there. And I'm just going to grab my word and center it onto the fabric. You could center it onto your fabric so that you have a good chunk of fabric to the right or the left and save good chunks of that fabric, right? Now, I think I'll do that. I'll just scoot this over a little and scoot that over a little. And I'm ready to cut. So this time it says it's going to take about 2 minutes. So my machine is, I think I got it about 4.5 years ago. She's a noisy one. The newer machines are much more quiet. I was actually amazed at how quiet it was, but it's going to take less than 2 minutes to cut this out. I can deal with the noise while it's doing that. The cool thing is, so we're cutting out fabric applique today, but I could put heat transfer vinyl on here and cut these words out of heat transfer vinyl and fuse that onto my quilt block. And I don't have to do any sewing at all because that's the same stuff that you make t-shirts out of, and it's completely washable.
Lisa, I have a question.
Sure.
You said to do a test beforehand so that you would have all the settings right.
Yes.
How do you know whether to go up or down on the settings for the cutting?
Okay. So let me come back to this screen real quick. Okay. So when you buy your machine, it should come with a little guide, and mine is over there, or else I'd show you. And mine came with like a graph that tells you start settings, right? You're always going to adjust from there. So fabric with fabric, it tells you beginning settings. I'm sure most machines have some kind of guide like that. It's like a start guide. So you want to start with those settings, and I can add a test cut if I'm using a fabric that I haven't used before and I'm unfamiliar with it. The newer machines come with an auto blade, so you don't have to do any of that. But on mine, I set my blade manually. So when I add that test cut, the first thing the machine does before it cuts out all my words is it goes and it cuts that little test cut and stops. And you can take and see if you can pop out that little test cut and if it comes out cleanly. If your blade wasn't down far enough or you didn't have enough pressure, your test cut might come out, but be still holding on by a couple threads, right? You know, you need to go a little bit deeper or make the pressure harder. You might have your blade way too deep and cut a hole in your mat, which I've done. I've cut circles, I've cut hearts, I've cut hexagon shapes out of my mat. And you have to fix your mat at that point. But my point is, it'll go and do your test cut. And if you're okay, then you just hit continue and it'll go and cut out all your stuff. If you need to make adjustments, you can go back and adjust and then do another test until you get your blade settings correct.
Okay, so you mentioned that the newer ones, you don't have to do that. So what exactly is that feature that I would look for to know that it had that type of cutting blade that wouldn't have to be adjusted?
So I believe the blade you would be looking for is called an auto blade. Like I know the newest, greatest one. I think Lisa has a cutting machine that has an auto blade, but it's supposed to go over and judge the thickness of your material and adjust the blade all on its own. And I believe that's called an auto blade. Mine doesn't come with it, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's called an auto blade.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm going to remove this from the mat. So here we are. We've cut out 2 different words using 2 different fabrics. And again, I'm just going to take that tape right on off. Now, I mean, it might seem intimidating, setting blade settings and all of that, but again, your machine should have a manual that gives you a starting point. And the more you use your machine, the more comfortable you're going to get with it. And here's what I do, y'all. I made myself a little binder. And each one of these cards has different settings on it. So regular fabric with the heat and bond still on it. Here's my blade settings that I found work the best. I wrote it down. So now, like when I started today with you, I don't even have to do a test cut because these are the same fabrics I've been using, and I know these settings work the best. I have another sheet that says when cutting heat transfer vinyl, these are my blade settings. When I cut stickers with a Kiss Cut, I have another cheat sheet, right? So once you find the settings that work best, this is what you do. However, the longer you use your blade, the duller it gets. You might have to make some adjustments even then, right? So it's always smart to start with a test cut, because if your blade starts to dull after a certain amount of time, you might have to apply more pressure, right? Or set the blade so that it comes out a little further in the holder. So that time I have a good chunk, right? Because I moved it over. So there's that word. And here is this word. And I still have a good chunk on that side to use. And you could have set 4 or 5 different fabrics on your mat. As long as they lay flatly on your mat, they could touch ends, right? But not overlap. You don't want fabric overlapping on your mat. But you could have filled every empty space on here and cut out several images at one time in one pass. But there's the other words for my block. There we go. I'm going to do remove spotlight and bring everybody back. And now would be a good time if you've had any questions that you've been holding off. Now would be a really great time. Again, y'all, I knew it was a possibility that we would have some nonsense. As soon as I announced it on YouTube that we were going to do a Zoom, and I told you where you could find me, I knew that it was possible we could have some nonsense pop in.
Don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about that. It just happens.
Wow, nothing like throwing you off, you know. But yeah, on the replay, I'll try to edit that part out.
Yeah, I think I would too, because they did a lot of cursing.
Yes, they did. Not only that, I don't know if you saw the little thumbnail of them dancing around, but
Oh,
It
no, I
wasn't pretty.
didn't.
well, you didn't miss anything nice. I can tell you that.
I think I'm glad I missed it.
Yeah. So that is my workflow. Now, of course, I still have the inside parts of the butterfly to cut out and the two little circles at the top of his antenna. But I think y'all get the idea, right? We've selected the parts we wanted to cut, got rid of the parts we didn't. We cut those pieces out and then brought the whole file back in and selected our new parts and cut them out individually like that. And that's just how my mind works. You might find a flow that works completely different than that, that makes more sense to you. But I just pull my selection of fabrics, right? I had my 5 or 6 fat quarters I was working from on my table. I started off with a good little, pardon me, chunk of heat and bond light. I didn't pre-cut that. I just cut it out what I specifically need for the specific parts that I'm cutting out at that moment. And I have my mat and my tape. And so I'm just working from the computer to the cutting table, fuse my fabric, put it on the mat and cut out that piece. Come back, collect those pieces off the mat, figure out what I'm cutting next, put that on the mat and cut that piece out. And that is my workflow back and forth until all my pieces are cut.
Lisa,
I think with the lettering, I think it's quite important that you also have that ability to replicate the spacing on your actual end product.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Because they're all individual letters. It's not a block of letters.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I could
Now-
go a bit astray.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
Now, does anybody else have any questions before I turn off the recording?
Lisa, I have another one.
Sure.
I'm not sure how far away, well, I mean, I can tell you exactly how far away my computer is from where I'll have the scan and cut. So I'm not sure if it'll be able to wirelessly go. So if I had to put this all onto a thumb drive,
Mhm.
do I do it separately exactly the way that you did it and somehow put each separate piece, add that to the thumb drive that way, and then I can pull each item up off the thumb drive separately, so I'm not running up and down the steps 10 times.
You have two options, Mary Jo. You could sit at the computer and figure out how you're going to do it, right? So because I'm just sending mine back and forth, I choose the piece I'm cutting and get rid of the rest. And then I come back and bring the file in. You could figure out the stages you're going to do and save that as individual files on your thumb drive and then put that in your machine, or just put the one file with all your pieces on the thumb drive, load it into your machine, and then from on your machine, delete the pieces that you're not cutting. It all depends. Like I like to work on my laptop because the screen is much bigger than this scan and cut screen, right?
Right.
And so for me and my hands and using the little stylus, it's easier for me to group things and delete things on my computer. You can certainly do it on the scan and cut screen, but you're using the little stylus and you might select the wrong pieces, however they're grouped together. You could do it both ways.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Sure. All right, everybody watching on the replay, we're going to go ahead and end today's free informal workshop. And it's been a lot of fun. If you have questions on the replay, go ahead and ask them down below. And thanks for hanging out with everybody today. And we'll see you really soon. Bye. Okay, everybody, that is, the recording is